So recently Fender released the Player 2 Modified series, Mexican-made line of guitars that have some pretty good specs. And as I was looking at these specs online, I started to notice something specifically with the Strat. Noiseless single coils, synchronized 2-point tremolo with the block saddles, an S1 style switch, locking tuners. This guitar is very close in spec to this guitar, the American Ultra 2. Now, although on the surface they look very different, these two guitars actually share a lot in common. The biggest difference between them, though, is the price. The Player 2 Modified series is coming in at $999 US, whereas the American Ultra 2 is coming in at $2199 US, at least at the time of filming this video. And it got me thinking, what's really the difference here? Where's your money actually going? And more importantly, I think this signifies a new trend in the guitar market overall that more of these bigger manufacturers are going to start leaning into. So in today's video, I'm going to shoot out these two Strats, show you the differences, the pros and cons, tell you which one I would buy if I was in the market, but more importantly, focus on this new trend, I think, that's happening in the guitar market overall. Now, a quick disclaimer. This video is not sponsored by Fender, although I did get the American Ultra 2 last year from them for free as a part of their launch campaign for this line of guitars. It is, however, sponsored by Sweetwater. I asked Sweetwater to send me over the Player 2 Modified so I could do the comparison, and they gladly did. I'll have affiliate links in the description box down below so you can check out both of these guitars if you're interested. It's a great way to support the channel if you like what I'm doing here. But as always, neither Fender or Sweetwater will see this video before it goes live. Neither one of them have any input or say into this video, and all of these opinions are my honest and open opinions on both of these guitars. But once again, huge thank you to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video and sending over the Player 2 Modified Strat so that I can shoot these two guitars out. So with all that out of the way, let's hear these two guitars. So I'm going to tell you some of my initial thoughts about the Player 2 Mod series. Before we do that though, I want to show you what I'm playing through. Both Strats today are going through the Rev D25 Joey Landreth edition. Joey's a good buddy of mine. He texted me a few weeks ago asking if he could send one of these out for me to check out, and I said, hell yeah, because it's rad. Really cool tube-driven 112 combo with a lot of modern features on it, like the 2 notes system, which lets you play and record silently with a direct out of the back. You can switch it between 25 watts or 5 watts. Just a really cool, useful, modern tube amp. And today we're miking it up with the AEA R92. And a quick announcement, I'm actually partnering with AEA to give away an R92. This is my favorite microphone to mic guitar amps with. I bought this R92 years ago and basically use it every single time I record a guitar amp or a bass amp. It's a ribbon mic that's designed to handle high SPL, high volume sources like guitar amps or bass amps, and it sounds great. So I asked AEA if they would be down to do a giveaway of an R92, and they said yes. So to enter in that giveaway, link is in the description box down below. Thanks to AEA for partnering with me on that, and yeah, go check it out. So the Player series has come a long way in a couple of years. The Player 1 series I never liked. I did a few shootouts with them in the 5 levels of videos from a few years ago. And both the Strat and the Tele, the Player 1 series always ranked last out of the 5 guitars because I felt like it represented the least value for money. They weren't as good as the nicer Squires that were being made at the time, but they were considerably more expensive. Now, when Fender came out with Player 2 series last year, I think they made a considerable step forward. They paid more attention to the fit and finish, rolling the fingerboard edges, making a few upgrades here and there, and I think it was a worthy step up. Now, they didn't address some of the core issues that I had with the series, like the pickups, but this guitar, I think, is actually a massive leap forward even over the standard Player 2 series. So first up, I have to hand it to Fender Mexico. Whoever's doing the fretwork there is doing an excellent job. This guitar out of the box plays incredibly well. The frets are nicely polished. The fret ends are rounded. The rolled fingerboard edges and the fact that it's a satin neck. This guitar is incredibly comfortable to play. And it came set up perfectly out of the box. Now, a big part of that is down to Sweetwater. They do set these guitars up before they send them to you. But also having the more modern 2-point synchronized tremolo, which is a better tremolo system than the vintage style Strat trims. It stays in tune well, it's intonated well, plus having the locking tuners, which makes string changes really easy, and the switching system, which is just a nice thing to have on any Strat. This is a worthy modification to do to your Strat, no matter who makes it or what style of Strat it is. Basically, letting you bring that neck pickup into these 2 different positions is really cool because you can start to get into that like Tele middle position kind of sound or blend all 3 single coils together. I think it's rad. Now, a quick note on that before we go any further. I do need to point out this is actually the second guitar that I had to get for this video. The first one that Sweetwater sent out initially was perfectly fine. I played it for a few hours, but as I was setting up to film the video, I was playing around with the push-pull tone pot and it stopped working. It would still spin, but the tone control basically was non-responsive, and it was stuck with the tone basically rolled all the way off. So the push-pull tone pot out of the box on that first one was bad. So far, however, this one's been fine. Now, that could just be a fluke. This is the only time that's ever happened to me from any guitar from Sweetwater or Fender, but it is worth pointing out. I did have a problem with the first one that I got my hands on. Now, these pickups are excellent. In the past, I haven't always been a huge fan of Fender's noiseless single coils. I think it's a pretty big step up. I think these pickups sound really good. You know, I actually think I prefer these over the American Ultra 2 pickups. Those are a little bit more modern sounding, a little more polished. These have a little bit more of that vintage vibe that I like. And it's just nice not having to deal with the 60 cycle hum. So yeah, man, I mean, for $1,000, this guitar is offering a whole lot, especially when you compare it to the Ultra 2. American Ultra 2 compared to the Player 2 mod, we have a lot in common. noiseless single coils, locking tuners, satin neck, rolled fingerboard edges, 2-point synchronized tremolo. This has the S1 switch on it, which effectively does the exact same thing as the push-pull switch on the Player 2 mod series. It's just bringing in the neck pickup in positions 1 and positions 2. The only difference is that the S1 switch has the button here on the volume knob as opposed to the push-pull tone control. There are a few features that make this lean a little bit more modern though. This has a compound radius fretboard, which goes from 10 inches to 14 inches. The neck profile also is a little bit slimmer than what's on the mod. And this has a very different body contour shape on the back where the heel is. It's a nice feature, you know, it does make it a little more comfortable getting access to the higher frets, but you know, it's not necessarily traditional. Also, I will say the synchronized tremolo system on this is a higher quality unit. It has the more modern tremolo arm that just pops in, and it does feel a little smoother overall. There's also some other differences, right? Like with the tone control here on the bridge, when you turn it all the way up, it goes to a detent position, which essentially removes the control from the circuit, and the knobs have some rubber on the outside. I mean, there's a few minor differences here, but for all intents and purposes, these two guitars have way more in common than they have differences. So that leads to the question, like, what's Fender's angle here? Why would you make two guitars that effectively tick all of the same boxes but have a massively different price point? Guitar is great. There's no question. In fact, I think if I was in the market between these two guitars, I would save the money and buy the Player 2 mod. This guitar honestly is 95% as good as the Ultra 2 for way less than half the cost. And that's a really interesting thing. They're essentially offering their flagship guitar, the Ultra 2, at a much more attainable price point. And this is intentional. Now, this is just a hunch. I have no insight on this, but if I'm Fender, and I'm looking at just the economy and the market overall, I'm noticing a few things. One, income inequality is at an all-time high. The cost of living is at an all-time high. Student loan debt is at an all-time high. And when you look at the wealth gap between the older generation, the baby boomers, and the younger generations, millennials, Gen Z, and then upcoming Gen Alpha, there is a massive gap in spending power and income and wealth overall. And I think Fender recognizes this. They see the writing on the wall, which is that if they're going to keep that next generation of guitar player in the brand, sticking with buying a Fender versus buying something used or going to another company overall, they've got to offer something at a much more attainable price point than that $2,000 to $4,000 range. And this is a trend that I think we're going to start to see more of in the coming years. I think this range of guitar, the $2,000 to $4,000 range, is going to start to become a harder and harder sell, whereas this range, the call it $750 to $1,500 guitar, is going to explode in popularity. Conversely, on top of that, I think the high-end guitars, the super expensive custom shop, boutique stuff, is also going to do very, very well, but it's for a different reason. I think Fender released this line as a way to hedge their bets over the coming years. I don't think this is necessarily a loss leader, but I do think it's an attempt to keep the younger player in the Fender brand. There's a lot of interesting research around brand loyalty and what causes someone to stick with a brand. And from what I understand, a big part of that is at what age do you buy into a brand? If you start playing Fenders at a young age, you are more likely to stick with Fender, and I think they know that. So when you just look at the fact that younger generations have less disposable income than their parents did at their age or their grandparents did at their age, Fender sees the writing on the wall and they say, okay, we've got to offer a better value guitar at a more attainable price point if we're going to keep selling new guitars. Otherwise, you're just going to push buyers into the used market or to other brands overall. And that's why we have what is essentially the American Ultra 2 at less than half the price. And I think other brands are going to start to do this. I think Gibson is going to start to follow suit with this very soon. And to be fair to PRS, they've been doing this. In fact, I think part of the reason Fender decided to lean so heavily into a line like this is seeing the success of PRS's SE line. You played or own any of those SE guitars, you know that they are unbelievably good for the money. And many of them are almost as good as the core line models that they're going after. So while this guitar at this price point is not affordable, this is not cheap. I mean, $1,000 to $1,200 to $1,500 is still a lot of money to spend on a guitar. It's at least attainable. This price point is much more attainable than what is almost $3,000 once you factor in taxes and things like that where you live. And I think this is a really good thing for us. I think we're going to start to see a lot more guitars in this price range that are offering the value and the quality and the features of much more expensive guitars from the same brands or the same line at a much more attainable price, because these companies see the writing on the wall. People just have less money to spend, and they know that if they don't meet people where they are economically, that they're going to lose that customer maybe forever. So again, that's just my hunch. But if I'm Fender, if I'm Gibson, if I'm PRS, Ibanez, whoever, I'm seeing this and I'm making adjustments to my line. So that is the Player 2 modified Stratocaster. It's honestly a great guitar. I don't really have anything negative to say about it other than the, tone control that went bad on the first one. But again, that might have just been a fluke. As always, I'd like to know your thoughts. Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you think I'm onto something with this hunch? Or do you think that Fender is just, putting out another line to try and sell more new guitars? Let me know in the comments. Once again, thank you to Sweetwater for sponsoring today's video and for sending this guitar out. I'll have links to this and the American Ultra 2, as well as the gear that I used in the video description down below. And also, while you're down there, enter the ribbon mic giveaway, the AEA R92 giveaway that we're doing in partnership with AEA microphones. Links are all in the description. You guys know what to do. My name is Rhett Schull. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you real soon on the next one.